and welcome back to another vision, another episode of Size Eyes, the life of a long-term multitasker. So this one, I actually just finished up Soul, the movie. Figured I'd ramble on that today. Yeah, it was a good movie. I got some. It was a tearjerker in some instances where you know I mean there's a lot of things to dissect and go into or potentially to go into, but one of the main things that's there, we'll just dig into it, is about purpose, about passion, um, how each of the characters plays a role in our lives, or how we see it. um, they talk about the spark, and so I mean there's a lot of parallels, a lot of questions that I've asked, I was just thinking about right now. But I mean, overall, movie was very good, very good. And It's a thought provoker for sure. So definitely recommend if you haven't seen it. Um, but I think, yeah, the purpose piece of it is kind of interesting because it kind of mentions how you, like, do we even need a purpose? How at the end it talks about, well, so spoiler alert. I'm gonna, we'll see how. If you haven't seen it, watch it and then listen to this, I guess. But a little bit late for that. Anyways, but like, do we even need a purpose? Is that, are we confusing purpose with spark, as the movie says? Are we confusing that with something else, with passion or something? You know, the barber. He wanted to be a veterinarian, right? But he didn't. But he still finds joy being a barber because of the stories that he listens to when someone is in that seat and they feel that willingness to open up. So he finds joy in that. He finds happiness in that. That may not be. That could be a purpose. That could not be a purpose. So, is purpose overrated? Is purpose underrated? Is it properly rated? I'm not sure. I mean, I think a lot of content out there these days is like about, at least stuff that I've consumed, so I can't speak generally, but stuff that I've seen is that there's, find your purpose, find your passion, and then do it. And I would say I subscribe to that framework, that thinking. I mean, hell, one of my, like, the way I've built out my aspirations, if you listen to my last couple of videos on planning, is, the top level is my life purpose. And so, I mean, that's if it's a pyramid, that's at the top of the pyramid. And so, should I be rethinking that? I don't know. But I think it's thought provoking. Aristotle didn't say this, but it's quoted to him, so we need to fact check that. Well, I did, and it's not him actually, but he said something like, the mark of an educated mind is to entertain a thought without accepting it. So I'm trying to think, is purpose overrated? Why do we have a purpose? Is purpose is it artificially created, or is it internally created? Are people trying to create purpose out of nowhere so that they can define their lives, so that they can have something to live by? And I don't think that's bad if that is the case. I don't think that having something to, like, a light post, a lighthouse, a light post, whatever, to guide you towards that light, that's definitely not a bad thing. I want to think of it. obviously I haven't thought about this too much, or as in like I haven't had too much time to debrief. So I'm trying to. These are live thoughts right now. um, so yeah, I think the other piece of this is um, the spark, right? How how do we distinguish between the spark that we have and our purpose? So let's go under the assumption that we do have a, let's say we have a purpose, right? Purpose is to help others through saving lives by being a doctor, or to teach children, or whatever profession it is. Let's say let's even assume that your profession is your purpose, right? That's a big assumption these days, but let's assume that. How do we ensure that, or how do we differentiate between spark and purpose, right? So maybe is spark, in the movie it's like the spark is like the small thing. It's like initially they were under the assumption that they got the little star, the last thing on their little badge, and then that was their purpose. But no, it's the soul was, at least the way I interpret it, was the soul. It was basically all ready to come down to earth, except it didn't have the spark, right? Which is eventually what they, I think, were trying to convey. That you have everything except for that spark, and once you find that spark, then you're ready to be a person. Then your soul is ready to enter into the earth as a human body. And so yeah, that's pretty powerful, right? But that spark is not our purpose. Like I think I have many sparks, if you will. I think defining spark, translating that into real life, is that moment in the movie where the little leaf falls from the tree, and 22 acting as the main character, like it falls into his hand, and like that is a little spark. The lollipop, all those symbols that he ends up putting on the piano at the end, those are all sparks of life. And those can happen to us, I think, any moment throughout the day, this is literally happening right now. Is this a spark for something else for me? So I think really that spark is really external though, right? Those were objects that inspired something. Those were external forces and events that provided a spark, that provided momentary joy, but were inspirations of purpose, of living life, of happiness, right? So then do we convert that spark into longer lasting happiness? Is that a valid question? Yeah, because I think, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to take this, but yeah, I think there's just like finding those little moments are really key. Like they're happening, those miracles, if you will, are happening around us every day, but do we take the time to notice them? Like a leaf could be falling and you're sitting on the ground outside and we don't notice it because we're on our phones. And even if we do notice it, it's kind of like the butterfly effect. Do we understand the magnitude of everything that has happened up to that point for that one piece of thing to happen, that one little event of a leaf falling? Do we understand that? I I don't think we can unless we have that. And I think that that's the other piece of it. Like, this guy was going through life pretty mundanely, pretty routine, not really enjoying the subway rides. And then when he finally had the perspective of this little elevator or this escalator to the beyond, that's when he finally realized. Well, even then, like, he was dead, and then he was trying to get back to Earth because that's all he knew, that's all he knows. So he's trying to get back. He experienced a different plane, let's say, and he's trying to get back into the earthly plane, the physical world. But it only took that perspective of being in a different dimension to experience something outside of the human body to really enjoy, to really be grateful for the human body experience. And so I think that was something profound as well. Can we take a step back in our daily lives to to understand these little moments of these little miracles that happen around us every day, every moment? And then B, can we have the perspective to realize how awesome it is that we're just people living in this planet that is inhabited by other people and animals and plants and inanimate objects, but knowing that everything has a soul, etc. And so I think having that perspective, having the realization that death is upon us, can really put a different perspective on life. And that's part of the reason why death meditation is a thing. So I want to get into that. That's a separate issue, but I want to learn more of that. So that was that piece of it. I think another cool thing is why they chose number 22 as like one of the main characters, or like the names for that. And so, it was probably just a random number, but I'm sure Disney, there's always like some, or Pixar, there's always some hidden motive or hidden reason behind these little Easter eggs. But yeah, I think 22 is kind of cool, because that's when, like, that's the age most people normally graduate college, undergrad, and kind of really discover themselves. I know for me, at least, it was, middle school, elementary, middle school, high school. You're just kind of going to school, etc. I'm not really thinking that much, honestly. And then college is there, but you're still like in the day-to-day. Even though you can take a step back during their breaks, I'm not sure how much I intentionally did that. But I think once you like started working, you can really find what are those external sparks, what are those factors that create the internal sparks. And what, if you believe in a purpose, what is that purpose? How do you go about finding that? How can you find it? What do you do once you find it, etc. And so like that's the age of discovery, literally. That process really, I would say, starts. And if someone has their purpose before that, during college and high school, even middle school, go for it. 100% go for that. But I think, after college, that's when people start doing more soul searching, doing more deeper thinking, since the brain's like finally almost like basically fully developed. to have these thoughts, and since maybe they've experienced different levels of education and maybe some work work experience as well. But I think the other aspect of, so putting aside 22, is I think it's cool that the little, whatever the things are, when they're finding the hall of everything, whatever, they're all little children, essentially, except it was like Tina Fey's voice. But disregarding that piece of it, having those little children full of play, full of joy, full of happiness, full of just being themselves in the moment, etc. There was no pressure to do anything. There was no pressure to find that purpose. And I think that is, a key takeaway as well, where I think we can put a lot of pressure to find our purpose, where if we're not happy in, let's say, our job or something right now, we can, it's almost like, do we want the money? Do we want the job? Do we want family happiness? Do we want my happiness? Do we want social life? Do we want a good place to live, etc., right? So obviously, like, there's like the happy medium between somewhere of all those factors and more. But sometimes do we put so much pressure on ourselves to find that purpose, where the profession that we want is our purpose and can pay the rent and bills, etc.? Do we put so much pressure? Do we have so much pressure from external forces that we need to find something and really devote our lives to it, whether it is our profession or something as a hobby that we do outside of the 9 to 5, let's say? And so I think it's cool that they portrayed that piece of it as the hall of everything, or whatever it's called, where children essentially can have the entire world, have the entire universe to explore what they want, what they like, to find that spark. That spark is not the purpose, right? Like, they might like bakery, they might like baking in there. That might be a spark, but that doesn't have to be the purpose. And so I think that was cool. Like, everyone. So I think, and you can try many different things and have many different sparks. So I think that could have been an enhancer, or I mean, if to the story of like an addendum is, there's not just one spark, but let's say it's like a continuous cycle of that, right? So let's say you find one spark, that person who was hit on the head with a soccer ball, that spark was sparked, and then they get the Earth badge, and then they come to Earth. But then that's not the only one, right? So ideally, it's, they go to Earth, they live, etc. But then they find another spark, and instead of the hall of everything being the place where they find it, where they discover it, it's Earth. It is experiences that they have. It's the upbringing. It's the school that they go to, etc. The people that they meet, the friends that they play with, and that provides another spark. And then maybe in high school, it provides another spark of a teacher saying something that really sticks with them throughout their life. Like, hey, maybe I want to become a teacher. Like, that's another spark. And so I think that would be an addendum, an add-on that I would make to the one of the messages that I took away from the movie. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of funny how there's like all this 3D, 4D type of stuff, like little dimensions, and then this guy's counting with an abacus, basically. So it seemed a little outdated, but the you seminar is going to do you or do them. But yeah, I think overall, I mean, we're at 20 minutes now. It was a good movie. A little bit of tears were shed, especially during, I think, one of the piano pieces. I wasn't feeling not feeling anything, but I was just watching the movie naturally, and then the power of the music just kind of was like, wow, like, dang, what is my purpose? Is this my spark? Where's my spark? How do I continue to have sparks? How can I create a spark within myself on a daily basis, on a everlasting, continual basis? Do I need to be looking for external sparks? How do I create sparks for other people? Do I even need to be doing that? Right, man, these are a lot of questions that I don't think we don't need to answer right now. But I think even if there is an answer, but I think these are topical questions that have arisen from a good movie. So definitely recommend watching this for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. And yeah, we'll call that a wrap for whichever vision this is. Thanks for listening to another episode of Sai's Eyes, the life of a long-term multitasker.